Afternoon, I'd like to talk with you about the relationship between employee and employer, and how I feel you can get the most out of it. In my career, in my profession, basically one of the best things about it is that I get to see a lot of different companies. I get to see a lot of different management styles, how people operate, what they do, and today I want to look at what I think are kind of two conflicting styles of management and kind of the strengths and weaknesses of each, and kind of more what I believe. And that's basically what we put up here is corporate citizenship, which is kind of my baby, and versus corporate dictatorship. Let's start by looking at dictatorship. I mean, you've all heard the word, and to make this kind of fun, what we've done is try to put this in kind of the context of a few films. So you've probably all heard the word dictator. What we're looking at here in this first section is kind of what my guys came up with is some like it hot. My idea was to call it kind of Donbass Redemption, which would have been kind of like the film Shawshank Redemption, but you know, without all the gay sex, probably. So, what is the kind of fundamental element of what I call corporate dictatorship? This is the idea of the owner or management as some kind of God-like figure. He kind of gets divine inspiration from the heavens, and he passes this down to his minions who fulfill his wishes. There's not a lot of back and forth. This is a pure power vertical. And probably one of the most prevalent business structures in Ukraine. And I think more or less for employer and employee, this is probably one of the easier structures to operate in, because the employer gets to do more or less whatever he wants, satisfy all his fantasies, and the employee more or less has to put up with a bit of a megalomaniac to pick up a paycheck. But there's not a lot demanded of him in this relationship. And there's some different aspects of it. The first one I want to look at is kind of the undisputed ruler. This has to do with communication. In this kind of situation, you have, and we've all seen it, right? You've seen very large, very successful companies to a certain extent. They have very well-known professional managers. But in my experience, when I go inside a company with this kind of management, you see a lot of ineffectiveness, a lot of disorganization, and you start to wonder why, right? And here I think it comes down to communication. And let me try to put this into an example. I worked for a while with an industrial group in eastern Ukraine. The story here was more or less the owner of the business in the turbulent 90s was able to get his hands on a very good asset. And, but I can't say this asset was incredibly close to his heart. He had kind of other ambitions in life. So what he started to do was to funnel management resources and cash kind of away from his core business into other businesses that he was interested in, that his friends were interested in, that his wife was interested in. And his mistaken assumption was that he was diversifying his business. But in fact, when the crisis hit, it became clear that he had basically just weakened his core business at the expense of some hobbies. And I was invited in to provide some advice on how to kind of get things back in order. And what shocked me when I came was that I thought that his management team would be, you know, some kind of, you know, idiots that had screwed up, basically, for this poor business owner. But when we started talking and going through the problems they had, I said, but you know this was a mistake. And they said, look, Nick, here's how it is here. There was music being played from the top, and our job was to dance from the music. We weren't basically asked to make any decisions. So, as you can imagine, it's left the company not in the best condition. Another kind of type of dictatorship is what we're calling kind of total control. This aspect aspect of dictatorship basically involves businessmen or owners that are in control of every minor detail of their business. Now, an example of this is an agriculture company I worked with where the owner knew everything about his business. It was his life. He was going to die someday out in those fields and be happy with it. He took care of everything from strategic planning to what kind of Christmas presents they gave out on New Year. But the problem was, when I started to look at it, was this just wasn't a very effective way to run the company, because first of all, his management resource was totally overburdened, which meant that a lot of times smaller day-to-day issues took precedent over important strategic issues that he really should have been handling. And on the other hand, his employees basically had no motivation to take initiative on themselves. They knew the guy upstairs was going to check what they did and tell them how to redo it anyway, so they had no kind of sense or reason for innovation. And the last thing, and I think this is especially prevalent in the former Soviet Union, it's one that I kind of think is kind of fun, it's what we're going to call spy versus spy. For historic reasons, for a lot of reasons, you've all seen this. The fundamental idea here is that the employee is probably enemy number one of management and ownership. That is, given the slightest chance, he's going to steal, he's going to lie, he's going to sell corporate secrets, and do other bad things for the company. So we have a lot of, basically, companies that spend a lot of time bloating kind of security infrastructure and bureaucratic infrastructure to make sure that employees are fully under control and they know exactly what they're doing at all times. I've seen this in a lot of companies here, tons of examples. At a dinner party not long ago, the HR director for a large corporation in Ukraine bragged to me how they used the same kind of interviewing system that the Israeli Secret Service Mossad uses for dealing with suspected terrorists. Another example closer to home, one of my clients kind of proudly told me, you know, Nick, we have military discipline here. My people know what I allow them to know and no more. Most of our guys don't even really know we're a public company. So he was very proud that he was able to keep this information secret. So this is kind of dictatorship. And my premise is that while this might have some short-term benefits, overall you're wasting a lot of the human research and management power of your company by taking initiative away from your employees. So if we could now, I'd like to switch to something that is more or less the background of how I do business and how I try to run things. And I've been lucky to witness it in other companies, things like that. Picked up bits and pieces along the way. This is called corporate citizenship. I think we called it New Hope. I wanted to call it, This is Sparta. If any of you have seen the film 300 Spartans, yes, a few people. It's not a bad film, not a bad film. Definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it. The idea of corporate citizenship and the core idea of this film, very similar. 300 professional, free dudes with a corporate idea or kind of like a country are going to be massively more effective and successful than thousands of Persian slaves that are basically only fighting to pick up a paycheck every month. So the idea here is you basically empower your employees to make your business better than you could make it by yourself. This is the idea of, and Vena touched on this a little bit in her speech when she was talking about service. The idea here is turning away from the idea of having a job and turning that job into a profession and taking pride in that profession. So, and I think there are a couple core pillars for me of what makes good corporate citizenship and what you need in your company to have it. The first, here it's called Bolshoi Sadet. I would call it more like what you don't know can kill you. This is all about communication inside the company. A company that only has one opinion is not going to last very long, in my opinion. The companies that are most successful in the long term are companies where management is comfortable speaking with people and gathering information and working together in a structured way with military-style discipline, but in a structured way to make a decision. Just the other week, I was in an agro company. They invited me in. I thought they were going to kind of invite me to pitch for a deal or something, but in fact, they were looking at some hedging opportunities for their harvest. And they said to me, basically the CEO and the owner sat there and they said, look, we can't agree internally whether this is a good idea or not, and we want you to bring you in to give us another point of view because we're trying to make this decision. And I think that's a very good example of how a company should make decisions. The other part of this is something that we do in my companies. I was taught it in Bank of Georgia as well. It's what I call a town hall meeting. The idea of this is you get everybody in your company together at regular intervals and you update them on what the company does, the successes of the company, the failures of the company, the short-term, long-term goals of the company, and make sure everyone has a basic understanding of what the company does. This is from cleaning lady to CFO. Everyone gets together. And the idea here is that an employee, no matter how big or small in the company, that understands how the big puzzle of your corporation fits together, is going to be far more valuable to you as an employee when he sees how his work fits into the big cycle of your business. My favorite example of this is my driver, who's sitting outside. I tried to invite him in, but he was too embarrassed. After going to a few of these town hall meetings, he came up to me one day as we were going to work, and he said, "Look, my wife's friend's sister's husband has a business, and they're interested in the services that our company provides." And through his basic understanding of what we did, he was basically able to land us a client that we then serviced and became a long-term client for us. So, you know, I would never underestimate the power of your employees, I guess, is what this information says to me. The next kind of pillar or foundation of corporate citizenship, mission possible. A lot of times when you have a power vertical, because there's so much information and responsibility going through one point, what happens is that tasks are not given to employees in a clear and logical way. We have an expression in English, I say jump, and the only thing you can ask is how high. So sometimes I've seen it in companies where you're not even allowed to ask how high, you just have to guess. So what I would say here is that what we try to do is give each employee clear tasks with clear goals and rewards for success and punishment for failure. And we impress upon them that they are the owner of this task. This is like their small business within the company. And it takes some time to get this working, but I guarantee you, an employee who has a clear task, motivation, both positive and negative, and feels ownership for what he's doing, is much more proud of his job and therefore working much harder to get it done. The third and final pillar is something that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to. Office vacations. I would say the office as your corporate country, kind of corporate team. But anyway, the idea here is that Well, let me ask this. If you take an employee and you tell him you have to be at work at 7 and you can go home at 7. And you take another employee and you say, you have this task, it's due on this date, you're fully responsible for it, and I don't give a shit how you do it, but you gotta get it done. Tell me, which employee is going to spend more time in the office and be more focused on the task while he's in the office? The second employee, yes. Scientifically proven. So this is kind of the first thing we try to do. In our office, we have no kind of, our office is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we try to spend all our time focused on task-based projects. Other little things we do, we have a spot for playing golf in our office. We have a place where people can take a break. We even have a shower for people that go downstairs. When they go to the gym, they come back and have a shower. So, and we're a long way from Google. We don't have our campus yet, but there are little things you can do to make the office a place where people want to come and spend time there and feel like they're at home. And I think that's an important part to building, again, something that Vena mentioned, kind of your corporate soul. Because that's what's going to hold you together in good times and bad times. For me, you know, there are a lot of skeptics of this kind of idea that it'll work, things like that. For me, the best example of corporate citizenship failing yet working was our bank. For those of you that know me, I used to be on the management board of Bank of Georgia's Ukrainian bank here in Ukraine, and we sold it in 2010. When we came in, just about everyone in the bank hated us. And they thought we were stupid, and they publicly told us that most of our ideas weren't going to work. 2 years later, when, you know, can't say that the business of the bank was particularly successful given the markets, but when we sold it, a lot of people, these same people came up to me and said, look, you know, I'm also leaving the bank because I don't think I want to go back to working in the kind of environment where I don't have control of my destiny and a sense of what the company's doing. So, so I think if you look at my guys here, you know, they're clearly all happy and productive. So that's my last slide. Thank you for your time, and look forward to answering.